This session is really, it's called Can We Talk? I'm a coach for a Head Start program in Brevard Public Schools in Brevard County, Florida. And I just wanted to share with all of you sort of what our process has been since we introduced class and are using it as a coaching tool. Okay, so that's me. I just wanted to go back to the magic of being young, and just wanted to just keep that in mind as we go through this last session of the day together. Okay.
We're trying to make it sound right.
It's okay if it doesn't.
Okay.
We're fine. It's not critical. Okay. So what I do as a coach is, first of all, I've been in early childhood for 30 plus years. My career has almost never strayed from 0 to 5. And what I do, I think I've taught every age group. I've directed for-profits, nonprofits, gone back to the classroom after being a consultant and trainer for many years. I've worked with Air Force, I've worked with Navy. My last foray, I thought, was into the public school system in a voluntary pre-kindergarten program in a Title I school, and then Head Start came along the way. So there was something else I didn't know I hadn't done yet. So as a Head Start coach and using class as a coaching tool, this is pretty much what I do all day long, and probably many of you do as well. So I have lots and lots of conversations. Some of them are really quality conversations, some not so much. But mostly I try to make them quality conversations. I teach MMCI, which I believe the lovely Mary Margaret Gardner trained me. So if I do anything wrong, it's on her.
He's here to click through the PowerPoint.
And then, of course, I model and demonstrate. More often than not, I'm in the classroom modeling and then talking with teachers about it after, about what did I do that worked, what did I do that didn't work, what would you do differently. And then when it comes time to feedback, those feedback sessions, especially after class observation, I'm carefully crafting my questions. And just really have sort of all of my questions in my notes so that I can help teachers self-reflect. Okay. So I just was looking for a little inspiration as I was putting this together. And I really like this quote. Words are singularly the most powerful force available to humanity. We can choose to use this force constructively with words of encouragement, or deconstructively using words of despair. Words have energy and power with the ability to help, to heal, to hinder, to hurt, to harm, to humiliate, and to humble. And I really try to keep this in mind when I'm working with teachers and working with children. So you have on your table, you have a blank feedback sheet, and you have one that has some feedback on it. And I just want to talk a little bit about how we give our class feedback in Brevard County. It might be a little different. Because of contractual language for our teachers, we are unable to share the actual class observation protocol with them, with the scores. Because as coaches, as instructional coaches, we are peers. We're considered at the same level as the teachers. So we don't want to give feedback that has a rating on it, because it looks like we've now overstepped our boundaries and then we've got union issues. So if you need more, we have more handouts in the back, and they will be up on the website, on the app as well. So this is really what we use to craft our feedback after we've gone through our class observation, taken our very careful observational notes without judgments, and done our coding. So we don't share the ratings with anybody. We do an overall program that goes to our education manager. They do what they do with it. We use it for coaching and guiding, but we don't share the actual numbers with them. So you wouldn't know if I was observing you, you would have no idea that you were a 2 in emotional support. But we would be having a lot of conversations. So this is what our feedback form looks like, and you've got that in front of you. And I've learned that we've been using this feedback form for a few years. And I found that the behaviors to eliminate, if I had anything in that column, I had no listening from the teacher. So now I use it sort of as a jumping off point, like, look, you have no behaviors to eliminate. That's great news. So I'm starting off on a high. And then I'm focusing on what they're doing well, what they want to continue, and really sort of carefully crafting that to match the language of the class lens. And then, of course, behaviors to increase. But before I give them this feedback, I'm asking questions about what I saw. Okay? So something to keep in mind. Want to make sure I'm always taking the high road with teachers. It's a hard thing to remember when you've watched the same teacher over and over and over again. Tell that child they must sit crisscross applesauce or they can't sit in the circle, right? And no matter how you've said it, no matter how you've modeled it, no matter how you've demonstrated it, they still got to sit that way, right? So, I love this quote too, what you offer to others, you strengthen within yourself. So if I'm always offering them encouragement and coming from a place of gratitude and love for what they do and for who they are, then hopefully I'm strengthening that in myself and I'm strengthening that ability in them as well. Okay. So before we get into this, what I'd like you to do, it's going to make you work a little bit. So you've got the two forms. You've got the blank, and then you've got one that has the feedback, or my observations, basically. What I'd like you to do as a table is just take a few minutes and go through that feedback and come up as a table 4 to 5 questions of what you might ask that teacher before you started getting into what you actually observed. Okay, so just go ahead. This is the can we talk part. You are determined, huh? I want to give you a little information about the observation that you're looking at. This might help as you're crafting some questions. So in October of this year, this particular classroom, the teacher left in a public school Head Start program. So the teacher left, and we had 2 assistants that were now in charge of the classroom for the next 6 weeks. So I assisted them with lesson plans. I went in, I was there a lot, but there were lots of days that I wasn't there. So they took over. In December, a new teacher was hired who had a lot of skills, had heard of class, but hadn't been trained in class at all. So in January, one of the other assistants left. We have a brand new assistant. So now we've got a new teacher, a new assistant, and an assistant that's been there for quite a long time, but had MMCI training 4 years previously, and not of a lot of attention since then. Does everybody know what MMCI is? Anybody that doesn't know what it is? Okay, so that gives you a little background. So this was as I was doing this class observation, this was the first time I was observing the very new assistant. So it was a little focused on her, and when we do these feedback sessions, it's the whole team. It's not just the teacher, it's the whole team. Okay, so that might help you as you're crafting your questions.
You did an observation with one teacher, but this feedback is with the whole team?
No, it's the whole classroom. So it's just, it's the whole classroom, right? So doing the class observation, right? When I do it, we're looking at what the experience is for the whole group of children based on all of the adult interactions, so not focusing on one person. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, does that help? Okay. You can go back to work. Okay, so let's see what you have so far. You guys can just take 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's wrap it up, and let's hear what you have so far, what questions you have. What questions you have for me, what questions you have about the process. So So now you're really going to be quiet, right? Okay, so who's ready to share? What table would be ready to share? Yep, in the back?
So I don't know, I approached this one way, and I don't know if it's too specific. Anyway, so I took I have a loud voice, so. I took one individual bullet and created questions around that specifically. So where it says continue to be flexible and focus on students' autonomy, etc. I said, or he said, how did you provide children choices during centers, and what can you do to promote choices? Another question relating to classroom organization was, what expectations did you set, when did you say them, and were they effective? You want all four?
Sure.
Okay.
Keep going, you're on a roll.
Okay. Another one for classroom organization that we said was, were your materials prepared, and how do you think that helped with your lesson delivery? Obviously that conversation could have gone either way, whether or not the materials were prepared. And then for instructional support, we said, what prompting questions did you ask, and how did the students respond?
Great, great. And sometimes, sort of where the magic happens, I feel like in these conversations, these feedback sessions, is when the team starts talking to each other. And they say, that's a perfect question that you said, what prompting questions did you ask? And the teacher will say, oh, I don't remember. And then one of the assistants will say, oh, but you asked this, remember? And then Susan said this, and then it went back and forth. And then I get to point out, yeah, that was a back and forth exchange. But the magic happens, it's really that peer-to-peer coaching when they start to engage in the conversation. Thank you so much. Another table, and there's no wrong way that you could have done this. It's just to engage in the conversation. So, somebody else want to share? Great.
We did more, I think, more of the positive climate kind of questions. So we kind of started out with, how should we spend our time together? I have some things I want to talk about. What are the things that your team wants to talk about? Or how do you think it went? Or how's this team going? Because I know you mentioned it was a brand new team. So finding out how they're working together and collaborating. So, and also this was, what did you think were your strengths? So that leads a little bit more into the instruction. Give me a little background about, the situation. So, yeah, an opportunity. Oh, yes, that was a good one. Yes. So what it strengths, but also what are your opportunities to learn more? Yes.
Great. I like that. Oh, that's your paper. You're good. You keep that. You don't have to turn that in. Anybody else want to share?
Okay, we'll check together.
Okay.
All right. Okay, here we are. We decided, we looked at, to start with, we look at classroom organization because that's a very real strength. And so we were looking at asking the group, we noticed, your activity went very smoothly. How did you work together to make your classroom so smooth? And with the hope that they will be able to talk about their preparation, in productivity. And then that's a strength base, so it will help us look into the other areas that they will need some encouragement or support. And that leads to our other question, emotional support. Go ahead and give us the question, okay? Let's go.
Now I have to rewind and try to remember. So we were looking at the one where we were going to start to encourage them to anticipate some specific problems they were having. So we, our question would be, what are some problems that, behavior issues that are specific problems you're having in your classroom? And have them brainstorm the problems themselves and then say, how could we plan for those and anticipate them? That was our
Great, there you go, awesome.
Any more?
I think that's it. We didn't get to your instructional support, we focus on these two, so.
I think that's great. One of the things that we try to model in these conferences also is we actually try to model the behavioral indicators of class, right? So by asking how can you anticipate those problems, it's something we want to actually be able to teach to children at some point. How can you anticipate, what do you think's going to happen when you put that block on top? What makes you think so? Right? So you're asking those kinds of thinking prompting questions. So that's great. Thank you. Another table? Guys, we're talking a lot over here.
I think we were talking coaching practices in general versus specific.
That's okay.
Hello. We were talking mainly about open-ended questions and relationship building with the teacher before we even get to this content, because it's a lot of content to take in outside of the context of a relationship. So a lot of our time was really spent talking about that.
Right, and it's the same thing in the classroom, right? So if we're working with students and we don't really have a relationship with them and they don't feel safe with us, then we're not getting to the rest of it. Yeah, thank you. Very good. Anybody else? No? You're good? Okay. Let's move on a little bit. You're still working on that? Actually, so these are just some other examples that I had. You can just look through those pretty quickly. More specific than what might be on that form, but some things that I've said with other teaching teams, continue to make those connections to the real world, such as the caterpillar metamorphosis, and recalling what happened yesterday when we rolled the dice, and she was really scaffolding from something that she had done the day before. Continue to use advanced language such as greedy, antennas, clumsy, steady, and then providing all the information for that meaning. So I try to be, depending on the level of the teaching team, I try to be very specific. But first, I'm going to start with those questions, those open-ended questions. How do you think it went? Where do you see your strengths? Many of the questions that you all came up with. And then some examples of behaviors to increase. And this table was asking a really good question before, which is why wouldn't you put anything in the column of behaviors to eliminate? And I actually start there before I get to increase, I always start with the positive, right? The behaviors to continue. But when I'm planning this, I start in the next step for me is starting in that column of behaviors to eliminate. And then I shift them to make them into behaviors to increase. Now, if it's something severe, like what you were saying at this table, that somebody's yanked a child by the arm and yanked them really hard, I'm probably going to stop the observation, step in, help coach model, and then we'll talk about that. So, and that would probably go in that column to make sure that we have that conversation about behaviors to eliminate. So this is real. This happened. I was in a classroom, and this teaching team is a well-oiled machine, not necessarily matching the class lens. So it's a very organized classroom. It's a very rigid classroom, right? But if you looked at classroom organization, they hit all the marks, right? Everything's prepared ahead of time, everything's in its place, everything's ready to go. They got that. Examples of how they, clear expectations of how they want children to behave, that's pretty clear. Just not so much matches the emotional support piece, maybe, right? So I was observing, and the kids were all sitting down for a snack, and one of the kids started to eat his snack because I'm sorry, I'm of the plan of why are you making that child wait? I think it's fine. Come sit down and eat your snack. You're starving. But every classroom teacher has their own way of doing that, and I picked my battles, so to say. But I was in this classroom, and one of the children went to open his snack, and the teacher just did one of these. And the kid, you could just watch him. He just shrunk in his chair. It's just it's almost the look was more powerful than if she had slapped his hand. So that was a real conversation we had, and I had to work really hard to find a way to say that in a positive way. Okay. So I did a little survey as part of putting this together, and I wanted to find out what teachers were thinking about class and how this has been for them. And these are just a few things that they said. So my aha moment came when I realized how many times I told shh to kids or to catch a bubble, right? Catch a bubble. In reality, we need to give them so many opportunities to speak and converse. Another teacher said, the videos really hit home for me, and I thought, I wish that could be my classroom. As I started to focus on treating children with dignity, respect, care, and love, my classroom became a very positive place to be, a place where I would send my own child. That was a real shift for that teacher. Class solidified how I've always taught, but put it into words that I can duplicate it with my assistants. This is a woman who has been teaching in the same school. She's been teaching there for 32 years. She was a kindergarten teacher for the first 10 years and has been teaching pre-K ever since in the same classroom, has never changed classrooms. So, except when she moved from kindergarten to pre-K. Anyway, she just said, this is how I roll. But class gave her the opportunity and the words to really train and work with her assistants the way she wanted them to be. And then here's another one. After some self-reflection, class has helped me increase my students' vocabulary and concept development. It has improved the climate of my classroom, becoming more positive for both the students and the adults. Feedback from the coaches and resource teachers have been awesome, and I feel it has made us all better teachers. So, good news. It's working. And this is what I was saying before, you know, where does the magic happen for you when you're having these conferences with teachers? How many of you are coaches? And how many of you are working directly with teachers in another capacity? Okay. So where does it happen for you? Where does the magic happen when you're using class and you're conferencing with teachers? Where does it happen for you?
May I share from a different perspective as an administrator, when you walk in and you see the school, it's truly like a community. You see the awareness, that stage is just set throughout the classroom, and you can feel that difference in the school. As somebody was saying earlier, it brings the passion back in that school, and even you just see it, you know it, you feel it. And one thing I do want to say, another thing is though, but I think that the parents, for me this year, is understanding that it was important to share where we were heading as a learning community with them as well. So to see them when they come in and that they are embracing those concepts and supporting that. And I haven't heard that throughout the day, and I was sitting back here thinking, there's this piece that's missing, and it's the element of those other players who may be your volunteers or my floater teachers that come in that this year that give my full day teachers year round that break from their classrooms to make sure that they had an opportunity to be at the training with us and to have that same opportunity. So, but just seeing the difference, feeling the difference, and seeing teachers that really have that love for what they do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I think that's really important what you said about those floaters that sort of go around and come in and relieve. We actually, in our Head Start program, in the public schools, none of our assistants, our instructional assistants throughout the school system get any training. If anything, they get very minimal training. In our Head Start program and our pre-K programs, we train the assistants and we train the floaters. So I'm glad you brought up that point because I think it's so important that everybody's on the same page. Thank you. How about anybody else? Where does the magic happen for you in your school?
We have a teacher who I think she's been at this elementary school about 10 years. She's a preschool teacher. Principal evaluates the teacher. This is the first year we've implemented class in preschool. And so I had come out, done a class observation, and did a debrief with her, and she started crying. And I kind of had to go, gosh, there were so many great things that happened in this observation. Like, this is why she's crying. And she actually said, I've never received this level of feedback. I wanted this, I needed this. Like I knew there were a lot of things that I did really well, but I was always told I was effective or highly effective on the educator effectiveness matrix. But nobody ever told me how to just go from great to greater. And so I think she felt like that detail was something that she always wanted, but she couldn't really articulate it till I had sat down to debrief with her. So for me, that was really impactful because I thought every teacher deserves this type of opportunity to have this debrief and talk about instruction in their classroom.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that I agree 100% with you. You know, teachers don't get a lot of feedback, either positive or negative, right? You know, it's just you scored here and go on your way and you got to figure it out. And if it's really unsatisfactory, then I'll help you out. So I think that's really important that you experience that with that teacher. Thank you. Anybody else? Where does the magic happen for you in your program?
I've been coaching toddler teachers using MTP for a couple of years, and I think them watching themselves on video, even though they've looked at the clips and they've read the prompts and they've responded, when I'm sitting there having a conversation and I'll stop the video and say, did you see how that child reacted? And I had a teacher one time that goes, oh, she goes, I didn't see that, but the child, she had been working with the child to say, they were very young toddlers, she pointed to the dog and, you know, she said woof woof, and he didn't say anything, and she turned for a second to attend to another child, and the child over here on the video goes woof woof, and she had missed that. And so watching the video with me together and talking about that, she just goes, oh my goodness, I didn't realize, choke up here. She said, I didn't realize these little things made such a difference for them. She goes, it really does make a difference. And so that was kind of her aha moment, and just a really reaffirming moment for me too. So it's the conversation along with the videos, I think.
Yeah, but there's that magical moment.
Yes.
Where she had that
Yes.
aha.
Yes.
It wasn't anything you did or said. She saw that.
She saw
Yeah,
that, yeah.
that's great. Thank you. Anybody else? Where's the magic happen for you in your program?
For us, I think the magic happens when we interact with teachers in general in all aspects, because I think this, when we talk about the power of a relationship, if you have an honest, trusting relationship with a teacher, no matter if it's a flyby, hi, or a sit-down talk, I think that the magic happens when you're able to reflect with teachers and brainstorm with teachers to become, what is it, I just lost it. But just thinking partners, like not knowing that you don't have to have all the answers, but your teachers can bring some great highlights to what they're doing in their practices.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know for me, the magic happens when they start to talk to each other. And it's not me telling them something. It's not me giving them feedback. It's not me giving them another idea. You know, I had a teaching team recently that's having some really challenging behaviors, particularly with transitions, right? Who hasn't had that problem, right? Every day. And I gave them a list. I gave them a list. Here's a bunch of things you can do. Why don't you guys have a conversation and let me know how I can help? And that was a game changer, because this particular teaching team and this particular teacher just wanted me to tell her what to do, and then she would come back to me and tell me why it couldn't work. So, and I kept falling into that same trap, right? Rather than asking the questions, what can you do? How can you solve the problem? Just like we would do with kids in the block area that are having a conflict. How can we solve this problem so that everybody gets what they need, right? Or that This can work. How can we solve the problem together? And so that was a real game changer for me that I saw as a coach. Anybody else? Any other magic? It's almost happy hour. Okay. Well, it's fine. Keep walking in front of that. All right.
Breaks your eyes.
Okay, this is another teacher who, she and I were having an exchange. We tried to video it. Didn't work out so well, but this is an exchange of our conversation. So she said that class has changed her teaching perspective and practices in the way that it allowed her to focus on areas that she may see herself not meeting when it comes to each area of class. Some are easier to meet daily, while others it is important to add into lesson plans as reminders. So she's got little ticks in her lesson plans that she keeps track of, so she knows what questions she's going to ask when. She's sort of already crafted them for her specific activities. The feedback sessions have showed her if she's meeting each area she worked to in planning, or if she needs to be more specific in certain areas if visually not shown during an observation. So, you know, it's just making her think more. And then her biggest aha moment is that she really feels like concept development is always a hard area, is generated by open-ended questions to help children think. I picked several open-ended questions to add to my lesson plans to make sure I implemented them in the group discussion to help increase this area of teaching. One of the things that we do in our MMCI training is, I know that it's really usually a 3-day delivery. We've extended ours to 4 days. And so the second half of that last day, we practice. We practice all the areas, we role play. We specifically focus on instructional support, and we tie it in with literacy. So we take the books. I don't know how many of you might use Creative Curriculum. We take all of the literacy books from Creative Curriculum, the read-alouds, and we have teaching teams go together and craft their questions. And really, without looking at the lesson plans, without looking at sort of what Creative Curriculum already has to offer, we have them work, how would you introduce the book? And what are the questions you're going to be asking along the way? And how, you know, what are all those pieces? So we have them actually really do some real practice. We also do a lot of practice with each other with back and forth exchanges and those frequent conversations. This teacher also said that she uses snack time as a time. She thinks that a lot of teachers, what she's heard is that, and this is sort of old school, that children should be quiet during snacks so that they don't choke. Let me know how that works out. But she finds it the best time to talk, right? And so we've seen in the class videos those great conversations that they've had during snack. My favorite one is, I don't know the name of the video, but it's when they're talking about, the little boy is talking about his plane is aerodynamic, and they're having a whole back and forth exchange about that. So she really took off on that, you know, with snack, and really making that a part of her snack time, making sure that there's frequent conversations and that those exchanges are going beyond 1 or 2 back and forths. We also did an activity, which we do in MMCI with popsicle sticks, write out a bunch of conversation starters that you can have at your snack table, at your meal table, so that you've got, the kids can pick something and read the question, and then we can discuss. So you can just flip through those. So I work with 2 other coaches and a resource teacher, and we all work with class. And you can click that last one too. Yeah, I don't know why that one. Anyway, this is just, you can just read those to yourselves, but this was just sort of their experience of class and how it's really helped them. I think for me, as a coach and as a teacher for many, many years, and as a consultant and a trainer, I had worked very extensively with NACCE's accreditation, and you know how there's a section in there about interactions with children. When class came around, when I first learned about class, I was like, oh my God, this is a game changer. Because it really shows teachers exactly what's going to make the biggest impact. and what it should look like. So as a coach, it's been, to me, invaluable. And it's not just my opinion. This is a research-based program, and somebody else is telling you it's supposed to look this way, not me. So that's been very helpful. And then I just want to leave you, this is that video, I don't know. So while she's finding that, I'd love to hear some feedback from you, because I know today we've been exposed to so many different areas of using class as a coaching tool. I'd love to hear from you sort of what's been most helpful for you today, or sort of your biggest aha moment, or what you're taking back so far. Anybody have any ideas? Anything. Doesn't have to be just mine.
I'll just share with you. So we have a similar form, kind of like yours, but we have a different concept. So we use something called the Go and Grow. Have you heard of that? Mm-hmm. So it's really something that we use so that we concentrate on all the positives, so that's their glows. And then we're going to go with everything that they want to work on, and then we're going to grow with specific themes that they want to continue to work on through their mentoring. So it's something to work on.
Thank you. Yeah, I've seen that. It's a really useful tool. Has anybody ever seen that?
We use it.
Yeah, you use it too. Okay, great. Anybody else want to share anything that's sort of come up for you during the day? Yep. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about MMCI.
Yes.
How do you squeeze that into 3 to 4 days, you were saying?
Okay, good question. So we do 4 days. It's 10 sessions, right? So it's 10 2-hour sessions. So we do, I guess we probably do, let's see, days 1, 2, and 3. We do 9 sessions, and then day 4, we do the last session. So it's 3 sessions a day.
So teachers are staff development then?
It's staff development. We pull them out of the classroom. We pay for substitutes for them. Yeah.
So in between sessions, how they're after session 1 or 2, they're supposed to go practice something in their classrooms. So that's not necessarily happening.
On day, right. So we'll do the homework together. We'll view those homework videos together, since they're not going back to their classroom after session 1 or session 2. We'll do those together.
Okay. And then you mentioned, the conversations you're having with the teams.
Mm-hmm.
What time of day? How does that generally happen?
It's not easy.
Yeah. Is it like
So
after
we
school?
have. It can be after school if the assistants are willing to stay. A lot of our assistants ride buses, so they're not available. Or a lot of our, they just get paid till 2:30 and they're out the door. So that doesn't usually work out so well. But we do have in our county, in our public school system, we have early released Wednesdays, every Wednesday the whole year. So I try to use that 45 minutes in there when I can. And if I'm in a school that has multiple classrooms, then I can hit 2 classrooms at once. Chen Miller. Yeah.
Last question.
Yes, ma'am.
Does the teacher gets a copy of this?
They do get a copy of that. I don't email it. It's actually something I hand to them as a copy. And if they want to use it for their own evidence for their evaluations that they've been observed, they can upload it themselves. So it's just a contract thing. Yeah. Any other questions? It's that first one. Yay. So this is a little inspiration to leave you with. You want the mic.
בשנה הראשונה שעבדתי במערכת החינוך נכנסתי לכיתה ב' 1 ובמרכז הכיתה על כיסא עמד ילד קטנטן עם עיניים גדולות. הוא קילל וירק וצעק, הסתכל עליי, אני הסתכלתי עליו, התקרבתי ולחשתי לו, אני יודעת שיש לך לב גדול, אני יודעת שאתה חכם, אני יודעת שאתה ילד טוב. מול כל הכיתה הוא אמר לי, מורה מטומטמת, את לא יודעת כלום. אני ילד מופרע. כולם אומרים שאני מופרע, המורים אומרים שאני מופרע, המנהלת אומרת שאני מופרע, אפילו ההורים שלי אומרים שאני מופרע. יש לך לב גדול, אתה חכם ואני יודעת שאתה ילד טוב. הקטנטן ברח מהכיתה, ובשבוע השני שנכנסתי לכיתה, אותו המחזה. קללות, צעקות, יריקות. לקחתי נשימה עמוקה, התקרבתי אליו ולחשתי לו, יש לך לב גדול, אתה חכם ואני יודעת שאתה ילד טוב. בשבוע השלישי שנכנסתי לכיתה, ליד הכיסא שלי חיכה כיסא קטן, ועל הכיסא הקטן ישב ילד קטנטן עם עיניים גדולות. ביום הזה הוא בחר בי להיות המורה שלו. לקראת סוף השנה שאל אותי הקטנטן, איך אני יודעת שילדים הם טובים? סיפרתי לו שיש לי סוד. עד כיתה ה' לא ידעתי לקרוא ולכתוב, לא הצלחתי לחבר מספרים. חשבתי שאני טיפשה, שיש לי מוח מקולקל. הייתי בטוחה ששום דבר לא יצא ממני. אני, חן מילר, תלמידת החינוך המיוחד, אני מורה בישראל. אני, שהמערכת לא פעם ביקשה לוותר עליי. אני נמצאת בתוך המערכת בשביל לשנות, בשביל להראות שאפשר גם אחרת. מורים, מנהלים, אנשי חינוך, המילים שלכם והמחשבות שלכם על הילד, בשלב כלשהו הופכים להיות המילים והמחשבות שהילד חושב על עצמו. אני לא אגיע רחוק, לא יצא ממני כלום, אני לא מסוגל, אני עצלן, אני לא יכול, אין ילד שלא. יש ילד שכן. תזכרו תמיד שחינוך זה עשייה בדיני נפשות.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your afternoon.